Hey, welcome back to another Just 5 Mins. I tell you what, would you like a free database? I know where to get one. Yes, it's Microsoft Azure, so just stop right now. It's not for everybody, I know everybody's got things, but what would you like? A 32 gigabyte free Azure cloud-based SQL database for free, permanently. Okay. Yes, there are some limits, of course. But there's quite a few. There's different tiers for Azure SQL databases. Okay, I was using a free one ages back, but it was really quite limited. I think it was 1 gig or something like that. And then I started looking at the Azure SQL serverless, which the whole premise of that is that it's the serverless bit means that when your database isn't in use, you can give it sort of like okay, if there's no activity within an hour, it basically just closes down the resources. Now obviously not so good in production, although who knows, maybe I don't know what the startup time is, but it's certainly for if you're doing development testing, just want to fiddle around with stuff. But there was some limitations. So there's a new free tier for Azure SQL. Okay, but it's got pretty impressive specs, really. Like I said, it's got 32 gig of storage. So if you go for something like your normal Microsoft SQL Express, you know, that's, what is it, 10 gig or something, and it's local and you've got to look after it and all that sort of stuff. This is in Azure, in the cloud. 32 gig and 32 gig of backup as well. Okay, like I say, there are some limitations on how long that backup's retained for and things like that. And essentially the spec is pretty useful, actually. I'm just having a look down in the list. Where's it gone? I've got my notes. It's very professional, this podcast, isn't it? But it's a virtual 4-core, okay, and essentially it's 100,000 seconds free per month, okay. But there's no limit. There's no sort of like end limit, as in this is every month. So, but it doesn't stop after a year, anything like that. So you've got it for as long as you've got your Azure subscription. Now, 100,000 seconds, I did a quick calculation. That's about 27 hours a month. So it's certainly not going to be running for a whole month. But the point being is if you're just doing, spin it up and get testing, and you want to maybe leave it for a few days and then spin it back up, the data stays there, but it just doesn't run as an active database. That's the serverless bit. Okay, so the idea is that you can use this, like I said, and it's a pretty good offering. You can. The good thing is, for all those people who say, "Oh, it's going to take my money," well, yeah, everything is going to take your money, isn't it, ultimately? But you're right. There are free options of hosting databases, but the idea is with this one, it is in Azure. It's a managed sort of environment as such, not a managed database. I don't want to get confused with that. But the point being is, that's a pretty good offer if you want to use that for development, and it's got a lot of features with it, and of course if you couple this up with Azure Data Studio, which is the VS Code-ish, well, it is VS Code ultimately, the same engine underneath, you've got a nice IDE with Copilot, and there is a free version of Copilot for Azure Data Studio, by the way, and then on top of that, if you then start to throw in things like, you know, the Azure Data API Builder, where you can generate REST or GraphQL endpoints off your database, and I don't mean just a raw pipe to your database. It's got authentication and it's got lots of other bits. So there's quite a lot you can do for free. And as I say, there is a button, an option that says, if it comes up to its 27 hours, it will just, you know, it'll stop and warn you and not go any further. You can tell it to carry on if you really want to, and there is obviously then costs, but the point being is that you can set that option. So if you happen to be going over your 27 hours in a month, it resets for the next month. Then it'll tell you and it'll stop you, from spending any more money, or any money, in fact, in this case. So there we go. That's what I've got this time. Azure free database in the cloud. Worth a check, I reckon. So especially with the other tools as well, like Azure Data Studio and stuff like that, you've got a complete environment really, with Copilot, for the AI code assistant. So there we go. Okay, so happy sort of databasing, and we'll catch you on the next one.